Welcome to the Evolved Caveman Podcast. I am Dr. John, the guide for your heroic journey towards greater health, success, and most importantly, happiness. And now, on with the show. Hey everybody, this is Dr. John back with the latest episode of the Evolved Caveman Podcast, and I am psyched to have with me today Michael Pedersen. And Mike has over 3 decades of business building, marketing, and a lifetime of professional fitness. His no BS, authentic approach to inspire and motivate growth-minded business owners to high levels of success is his mission and passion. He is the author of Dominate Your Market, No BS Impact Strategies to Explode Your Business Revenues, Have More Energy, and Get the Life You Really Want. Mike, how you doing? Welcome aboard.
John, thank you so much for having me. I'm pretty pumped. I love what you're doing, and it definitely vibes with me like straight across. So I'm pretty excited.
And you focus on men too. So tell me a little bit about your story. How did you come to the point of writing the book?
Great question. The book was a culmination of the last 25 years of my life. I was a private fitness trainer for 20 years up in Portland, Oregon. And my market was male CEOs privately in their home. And these guys, very successful men, $50 million, $80 million, sold businesses, millions, all these things. And I would go in their home and they were broken, absolutely broken. They were broken physically. They were broken mentally. Their relationships, back then, 25 years ago, the modern feminist probably wouldn't like what I'm going to say right now. But back then, the wife wasn't working. And most of them were seeing therapists, the wives, because the men were what? 24/7 in their businesses and focused on their businesses. And the wives, felt kind of left alone. This was back in the day. It's changed a lot dramatically now, as we know. But I would go into these homes when the door shut behind me. And I was like, wow, these men, on the surface were written up in newspapers up there. They were like poster childs. And then you go in and you start talking to them and they're just broken in every way.
Well, it's interesting because one of the quotes that I love from your book is you can't take your company with you when you die. So why let it put you in the grave? And I've had a similar experience in the sense that I've seen a number of executives just run their physical, emotional, and spiritual health into the ground by being addicted to work primarily. And I think that starts off with a good value. I want to provide for my family. But somewhere along the line, it gets warped and it morphs into something that's not serving them. So what's your experience there personally or with your clients? Tell me more.
Well, I think the big thing is in the past, again, things are so different now with, the modern feminist and all of that. But I have a passion to work with men. It's that's my alpha attitude, ex-athlete, ex-everything. That's who I work with. I work mostly with men, but I think we were brought up and we were kind of brainwashed that we identify with our success in business. Men identify with their success in business. I heard a phrase a couple of weeks ago and I really thought, oh my God, this is crazy. Because I'm a single man now. I'm divorced at 4 years, right? And I've dated a lot of women. We don't even want to get into that. But a lot. I'm going to write a book on it, to be honest with you. For men, the book's going to be for men. But here's the phrase that I heard. I didn't come up with it. So if you have female listeners, don't bash me. Women market with their skin. Men market with their success. And I was like, well, and just go to social media. There it is. The men are with their planes and cars and their toys. And a lot of the women are very, 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 very sexual. They show, especially if they look good. If a woman is in shape, she's going to show it on social media, no doubt. And I've blocked on my Instagram. I don't even do Instagram anymore, but on my Instagram, I have blocked probably 500 women in the last couple of months. 500 of them.
Because
how many selfies can you take of yourself showing all of your stuff? I don't want to see it. It brings me no value.
Okay.
Instagram, I got to a point where I thought, is Instagram bringing me any value? And I was like, 0.
Well, yeah, I think you could probably say the same for most social media these days, depending on how you use it. But so let me turn to, how can a high achieving professional get their physical health right?
Well, number one, drop all the excuses. I talk about that in my book, right? Chapter 1, don't bullshit yourself. Drop the excuses. Oh, it's raining out. I thought I was going to go on a run, but it's raining, so I can't do anything at all today. Yeah, right. Okay, right? Or, gosh, I hurt my ankle or I hurt my elbow and I just can't do anything today. Yeah, that's one part of your body. I'm sorry. That's one little part of your body. So it's becoming truthful to yourself. That song by Michael Jackson, Man in the Mirror. Boom. Wake up every morning and look in the frickin' mirror and have a conversation with yourself and make it as authentic. Talk out loud if you have to, right? Say these things in the mirror out loud. Like if your thought is it's raining today, I'm not going to work out. Then look in that mirror and say that and let me know how that makes you feel. It's raining. I'm not going to work out.
When it comes to working out or getting to the gym, I find it only takes one thought to deter us. For instance, you're in bed, you're under the covers, and you're like, oh man, it's so cold out there. Boom. That's enough to keep you under the covers.
Yeah. There's always that little guy on your shoulder, right? And he's chirping away. He's chirping away at you like, you don't need to go. Just take a day off. You went out drinking last night. You're a little tired, What's one day going to mean? What's one day going to? It's nothing. Well, one day leads into 2, leads into 3, leads into 7, leads into a month, leads into a year. And then
you're assuming they've started.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, that might not be a good assumption.
I've had these CEOs. I had a CEO sit across the table from me one time. And it was kind of funny because this is a great story. So at the time, I just shot I was doing fitness modeling back in the day. And I just shot a 3 full day infomercial that was seen all over the world for a piece of machinery. It was remember a SoloFlex back in the day?
Uh-huh.
This was a competitor to SoloFlex called Nordic Flex Gold by Nordic Track.
Okay.
So I shot this video. So I was just ripped and cocky. And I went into this guy's home who's just sold his company for $85 million and big fat guy. And I sat across his kitchen table and he says, why are you even here? And remember, he sought me out. I didn't seek him out. And he says, he's testing me. He goes, why are you even here? I go, you need me more than I need you. I didn't even hesitate saying that to that guy. He hired me. He says, how much are you? And I was charging a lot of money back then. I was the highest paid trainer in Portland by double, probably. I took the average rate and doubled it because I knew I was working with guys that their health was worth millions of dollars. Yeah. Millions of dollars. So it really is just these guys, and human beings by nature are lazy, right? The United States is one of the fattest countries in the world. And it's getting worse. Go to any mall, go to any movie theater, and look at the children even. And when you see the child, if the child's overweight, I will bet you $1 million I can look right up to that parent, and the parent's going to be overweight. So now I'm going to say something very, very harsh. I'm going to blame that parent for that child. I'm going to blame that parent for that child.
Yeah. Well, and we definitely have an obesity epidemic in the United States.
Massive.
And I mean, like I was just over in Italy and it's a dramatic difference just in how people maintain their physical being. So, I mean, how do you just focus on the physical or do you also focus on the mental, the emotional, like
all of it?
Okay.
Yeah. My book covers a lot of that mindset, thoughts, all that.
Because one of the things that you mentioned is getting real with yourself to achieve your dream life. And one of the funny things I've seen in my clients is many of them have a hard time going to a positive future to even conceive of that dream life. And then there's other people that spend a lot of time there. But what's been your experience with that positive future and people seeing out to what their dreams and goals and intentions are?
Well, I've done a lot of studying. I've read over 200 personal development books in my lifetime, 200 of them. And I love it. I love human psychology. I probably should have got a degree in psychology back in the day, but I really feel like human beings don't make a decision until what I call the pain is great enough. Not the pleasure, the pain, right? And I don't know if you read my book, do not say the ending, but my ending, did you read the very ending of my book, the little story at the end?
I haven't gotten that far.
Okay, it is phenomenal. And I literally got a client hire me. He read the book. That last story, he was like, dude, that story, like he reached out to me literally after he read the story, boom, like that. But it's pain, right? So, okay, it's like this. So if somebody's been overweight for 2 decades, right? And they're getting bigger and bigger, right? Well, they might have what I call a trigger moment. They see a picture and they've seen 100 pictures of themselves, but they see one picture from behind or at an event, or this or that. And they go, oh my God, look at me. Look at that picture. I got goosebumps all over my body right now. And that trigger was like enough to say the pain was so great for them to look at that picture that they said, I am not living like this anymore. So it's not so much painting a future of positivity. People, human beings, don't make decisions until the pain gets great enough, in my opinion. Because you can think of your future and you can look at, oh, I want it to be this, and I picture myself being fit and running miles and miles. That's not a motivating factor for a lot of people.
No, I agree that I think pain is the initial motivation. I think pain is stronger than pleasure. I think, we know there's a negativity bias in the human mind. By a factor of 3 or 4 to 1, we overfocus on the negative. And, I'm trying to figure out, how do you get your clients to get in touch with that dream life? So let's say they come in because of the pain.
Yep.
But what I found is some people have a hard time even conceiving of that dream life.
A lot of times what I'll say is, when do you think you felt and looked your best? Like, how old were you? Well, God, probably 21, 24, right before I went to college. They'll say a phase of their life, right?
Yeah.
And I'll say, do you have any pictures? Oh, lots of pictures. I said, pull one out. They pull it out, and of course, they're way lighter and maybe more hair or all that stuff, right? But I'll say, well, if you look at that picture and go back to that, like, of course, life changes, you're married, children, responsibilities, stress, all of that, to tack that on. But can you get back into that mindset of that body right there? You're looking at that mind and think, how did you feel? Oh, I felt amazing. God, I this and I that. And back then I was running, I was this, I was doing all these things. I say, well, how does that make you feel right now if you go back then and look at that? God, it feels kind of good. I kind of like that. Bottle it up. Bottle that feeling and put it front and center in your mind. Now go back to that feeling every time you have a sense of, like, let's say you're going to start walking 15 minutes a couple of days a week. Just really, really basic stuff. But, you have that day, the self-talk says, I'm tired, I don't want to do it or whatever. Well, most people would say, yeah, just one day is not going to matter. It doesn't matter one day, right? But I say, go look at that, remember that vision of how good you felt at that point of your life. And take a picture, tack that sucker on your bathroom wall, whatever. And have that as a go back to yourself. That's just one strategy, by the way. But yeah, it's a way to, you've got to go look at where you came from, because a lot of people, they're so far gone from a health standpoint. Mental is a whole different story. That's a whole different story. But from a health standpoint, they're so far gone. They're like, you know what? I'm 55. I got what I got. I'm just going to ride it out. Well, we know how that turns out. Heart attack, diabetes, years off your life, all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, there is research to back up that idea that, like, let's start with someone that's depressed. And there's 3 proven methods to deal with depression. There's medication, meditation, and exercise. And exercise has been shown to be the best of those, because you come away with a sense of self-efficacy, that you have some control over this. Whereas if you're using the medication, there's a higher probability of relapse into a depressed state. So yeah, I think exercise is one of the keys to a number of things. But so one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about was mindset, and how, like, a CEO's mindset enters into that equation between success and business. Simon Sinek. I don't know.
Simon Sinek. Yeah, Sinek. There you go. Right.
Yeah.
Your why, right? Like, you got to, and I do it on a daily basis. Why do I do what I do every day? Because I'm a grinder and I do a lot of stuff. My ex-wife would tell you that. Well, I've got the word relentless tattooed on my body. There you go. So relentless is a big word for me, right? So But every day I say, why do I do it? And so I reflect a lot. So, really a CEO, what's your why? What's the end goal here, sir? Whether they're 45, 50, 55, 60, what's your end goal? Is it to sell the company? Is it to leave it to your kids? Do you identify so strongly with your success that it's a make or break for you? The success or failure of your company is so identifying with you that it really is affecting every part of your life. So, I really think people need to find out what their why is. And it sounds fluffy, and I don't like fluff. If you read my book, there's no fluff. It's just right at it. But I do believe that from a psychology standpoint, you do have to ask yourself, why am I doing this? Why do I have this job? Why do I get up and do this? Get to that. And you have to keep going deeper, because a lot of people might be like, oh, I do it for my kids. Why? Well, I want to leave a legacy. Why? And you just keep it going deeper and deeper and deeper till you get a man. I've had men crying before, right? Mm-hmm. And these are, I work with some pretty manly men.
Well, and mindset's interesting because I think we can break it down into specific domains, and there's research to back up how powerful mindset is in a number of domains, like weight loss, pain management, aging, stress, learning. And, one of the ones that I love is a study by Aaliyah Crum at Stanford, who looked at women who served as, they were people that cleaned in hotels. I'm losing the term for it, but none of them believed that their work qualified as exercise.
Oh, wow. Jeez.
And yet, they're changing the bed linen, vacuuming, cleaning the bathroom, all these burn calories, and they're doing this 8 hours a day. And so she had a control group that she didn't really do anything to. And then she had another group that she just taught for, I think, 3 minutes, that their work qualifies as exercise according to the Surgeon General, and broke down each task as these are the amount of calories you're burning. And just from that change in mindset of how they perceived work, I think it was 2 to 4 weeks later, they had dropped weight, their hip to waist ratio shrunk, their blood pressure went down, and they were more engaged in their work. And so that's just an example of how powerful mindset can be. And the cool thing about mindsets is they can be changed like that.
On an instant.
It's just a decision. And, you find out that, this mindset or this perception way of looking at things is better for me. Let me make a decision to embrace that mindset. It's mindset is incredibly important. Well, kind of along those lines, how do you teach people to get out of your own way to succeed in business?
Well, it's, you have to break it down into little buckets, right? Because I think everybody's so overwhelmed right now, and especially, typically I work with men, it's almost across the board. And they have so much on their plate, and family stresses and work stresses and health stresses and all these things that if you come at it from a holistic standpoint of everything, it's too overwhelming. It's just too overwhelming. So you have to prioritize things. And when you prioritize it, you say, hey, Joe, what's like the biggest challenge you're having right now? Well, I can't sleep at night because every night I go to bed and I think about this thing, whatever it may be, right? Okay, would you say that's the number one thing right now? Yes. Let's focus on that. Right? And how can we chip away at that? How can we just get, little minor improvements to chip away at that so you start getting momentum to feel like you've turned the corner and it's achievable to conquer that challenge, that mindset challenge you're going through, right? But it's just, it's bite-sized, chunk, you have to chunk it down. And that same thing, even I'll go back to exercise for a minute. So I used to get people that would hire me and, they'd put on a lot of weight, right? And they say, well, how long is this going to take? And they were very flippant, and here's a guy, me, I work out 7 days a week. Knock on wood, still today, I work out 7 days a week, right? So it's a huge part of my life. But they flippantly say, and look at my hand, like, how long is this going to take, right? And I say, well, how long has it been since you've let yourself go? And they go dead quiet, right? And I go, what? Just give me an idea of when you really started feeling like you started putting on weight, not this end weight where you're 40, 50 pounds. Well, 25 years ago. So what time frame do you think is realistic to turn this thing around? when it's been 25 years of accumulation to get where you're at now? Right? And it's a wake up to them, because fad diets, diet pills, all the shit that's out there right now, I just can't stand it. There's a new diet book every day on the market, right? Mm-hmm. And 25 years ago, I had a phrase I used to tell these CEOs: if diets work, there'd be one. There'd be one. Not the blood diet, the sugar diet, the carb diet, the this, keto diet, all these things. Because of all the new diet books that have come out, why in our country are we still getting heavier? With all that information out there, right? So I really think, going back to that CEO, it's putting it in buckets, and you could have health, mindset, business, right? And you could have these in buckets, and now you could chip away at each one of those. And even, sometimes I'll have a call with a CEO client, and we'll spend 10 minutes on this, 10 minutes on that, 20 minutes on the business. A lot of it's business, because they're bringing me on to grow their revenues by fixing their sales bottlenecks, their marketing bottlenecks, and all of that. But so I would always say that probably 40% of my call is always going to be on business growth strategies. Mm-hmm. But then I really want to get into helping more and more CEOs work on their health, work on their mindset. Because if you don't have your health, and I say it in the book, if you don't have your health and you don't have the right mindset, good luck being successful, right? You're going to die 10 years younger.
Yeah. And let's talk a little bit about limiting beliefs or self-limiting beliefs, because I think these come up a lot for people. I mean, you can feel not worthy of being successful. You can feel not worthy of creating wealth. You can feel not worthy of love or happiness. And I think our own beliefs can really hamstring us in terms of success.
Yeah, well, I think the one word that comes to my mind when you say limiting beliefs, impostor syndrome.
Yep.
Right.
That's a big one.
And I have it. I mean, I come across so strong, because it's just who I am, that I don't ever want somebody to think I think I'm perfect, because, oh my God, am I far from that, right? I'm a work in progress every day. The evolved caveman, I love your word, evolved.
Well, it should be evolving, but thank you.
Yeah. Well, we should all be evolving every day, right? All of us. And, it's so funny. I did a dating app one time a while back, and I'll never do it again. It was horrible. It was just ridiculous. But one phrase I put on there was, self-awareness is really important to me. And a lot of the women like that, because I guess a lot of men didn't say that. So they would hit me up and go, tell me more about this self-awareness. I'm like, I'm not your coach. I'm not going to get into that, right? I mean, but they wanted to know my mindset behind that. And I just said, well, it's pretty self-explanatory. It's just work on your shit. Work on your shit, right? So I think, self-awareness, and when you get into that imposter feeling, it can go into your family life, your business life, your personal life. Imposter, like, I'm a fraud. I'm not who, I'm trying to project this, and I'm not that guy. And so I think I don't know about you, but I know for me, even writing the book, probably I wrote this book in 47 days.
Wow.
So yeah, well, it's kind of funny. I took a challenge on by a female writing coach who I got on the phone, and she said, well, what's your budget? And I said, well, how much do you charge? She said, to coach me in writing the book. She said, $25,000. And I said, yeah, no. And I did boom, like that. She goes, and she got kind of an attitude. She goes, really? I go, yeah, no, I'm not going to spend $25,000 to have somebody coach me on writing the book. And she said, well, what's your time frame? Right? And I go, well, what do you think? She goes, have you started the book? I said, no, it's just right up here. And she goes, 6 months to a year. I said, I'll get it done in 90 days. And she said, good luck with that. My last word was on day 47, and I sent her an email saying the book's done. And of course, I had to go into editing and all that stuff, right? So I really took that as a challenge, like, screw you, like, I'm getting this thing done, right? But during the book writing, many times imposter creeped in.
Well, yeah, and I feel, like, if I look at myself, the imposter syndrome comes up most for me when I'm presenting to people that I worry are smarter than me. So like I've seen it when I'm presenting to psychiatrists and psychologists. And then I get, really nervous and self-doubt creeps in. Where do you see imposter syndrome come up the most for you?
Well, it definitely isn't on the fitness side for sure. It's definitely not on the health and fitness side because that's just a big chunk of my life. But probably in business, very similar to you, I'll get on a Zoom call with a CMO of a big corporation, right? And he starts talking, and even just the way he's talking, like his breadth of knowledge and the words that are coming out and all these things, I'm like, Jesus, what? It made me feel a lot less. But then I thought, okay, this guy has been a CMO for 20 years. He's worked in the corporate world for a $100 million company. I've always been a solo consultant, solo everything, right? And so my world is a lot different than his world. But then I did say one thing to him that was very, it made me feel a lot better. He said, well, he said to me, what's your background? And I said, well, I launched a website that did pretty good back in 2001. And he goes, well, tell me about that. And I said, well, I took golf and fitness, my two passions. Fitness was my profession. And I became a rabid golfer. And I launched the world's first golf fitness membership website in 2001. And he got really intrigued with that, right? Because I said, well, have you ever done anything like that? He goes, no, I've been a C-suite my whole life, right? Well, there was my competitive advantage right there. Because all of a sudden I started talking about that. And I'm content marketing, video marketing, YouTube channel, all this stuff. And he's like, whoa. And all of a sudden that imposter syndrome quickly went away because we all bring to the table, you're who you are, John. I'm in who I am, Michael. Nobody is me. Nobody is you. And that goes back to that, personal brand is a big buzzword now, especially even on LinkedIn, right? Grow your personal brand. I've been doing that for 25 years, right? Even back when I was fitness modeling, I was a personal brand, but there was no social media back then. There was nothing, zero. There wasn't one of these back then. There was nothing. But I do believe that there is something to say about personal brand and embracing what you bring to the table, irregardless of what's out there around you. The CMO guy, all these people, there's so many brilliant people out there. It's insane. I meet people every day that are so smart. Every time I talk to somebody a little bit, there's that little Michael on the show. It's kind of like, dude, you don't know anything. Listen to this person. Like, geez, you know what I mean? But then I quickly say, I take that little guy off my shoulder. I throw him off my shoulder. I just swipe him off my shoulder. And I go, don't listen to that little dude anymore. He's not serving you well.
Well, and I think you're right. I think that we all bring different sets of knowledge, different experiences, different personality to any work that we do and other areas as well. But I like that, Howard Gardner's, 7 types of intelligence, just as a reminder that everyone has different strengths that they bring to the table, whether it's verbal intelligence or quantitative intelligence or musical or kinesthetic or,
creative.
Musical. And so just reminding myself that I know a little bit about one area or 2 areas, and they know a little bit about some other areas. And I think, I remember being in the PhD program at Cal and just realizing how much I don't know. Yeah. Because you could be doing a PhD dissertation in one really razor thin area, and there's someone else next to you doing it in another area. And you're like, wow, these areas are pretty similar, but I don't know anything about what they're doing.
Crazy. That's crazy. Wow.
So speaking of which, how do you teach other people to be comfortable being uncomfortable? Because I think that's a really big skill.
Yeah. And that's a chapter in my book, right? Getting out of your comfort zone. I've had people say, have you ever cold called me? Like that asked me, have you ever made a cold call? Probably 10,000 of them. A lot. Way back in the day, right? I was mowing lawns at the age of 9, knocking on neighbors' doors that I didn't even know, pushing my lawnmower because I wanted to make money at the age of 9, knocking on the door. Hey, Mr. Johnson, I'm Michael down the street. Your yard, can I mow it? No, don't need it. Next door, knock, 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 right? Well, was I thrilled to do that? No. But what was the driving desire? I wanted money. At 9 years old, I knew I wanted money. So the driver was knock on those doors because you're going to get a yes and you're going to make money, right? So I really think that for a lot of people, God, the mind is such a crazy, crazy thing, that I think comfort zones if you let yourself talk about the feeling of discomfort too long, it's over. It's over, right? If you talk about like, oh, I don't like this. I don't like this. I don't like this. Oh, I just don't want to do it. I just don't want to do it. All that self-talk, it's over. Like it was over 4 or 5 statements ago, right? You have to just put it in a box, put it out. It's sitting in this box floating out there. It's no big deal. Who cares, right? Like, even inviting people on my podcast, I got a note earlier today. The first out of 24 no's. And at first I kind of was like, who are you to say no to me? Like, this is a great podcast. What are you talking about? No. But then the second part of me was like, hey, best of luck to you, man. Take care, right? But then within the no, which got me uncomfortable, right? I kind of made me feel a bit less, right?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
It stings.
Stings a little bit. Within 30 seconds, I sent my next invite out. Because if you bask in that negativity, if you stay too long in that zone of, God, he just said no to me. God, that feels like shit. I'm going to sulk for a while. It's over. It's over.
I like the mental jujitsu approach of, I remember I was talking with a client and he was saying that he had a friend and I think they're up in Chico and they were going out bar hopping, and his friend was trying to get him to meet some women. And he was not comfortable approaching women in bars. And so he said, all right, I'll go out with you tonight, but there's one condition. I was like, what's that? He said, well, you have to get 3 rejections before we can leave any bar.
I love it. Love that.
And it's brilliant in the sense of it turns the rejections into the goal. And you can take that and apply it to cold calls or sales calls. And, okay, I'm going to make calls until I get, 10 rejections, whatever the number is, but use those as, okay, cool. I got 1 rejection. Check. So that rejection has less sting and actually becomes desirable rather than undesirable.
That's beautiful. That is that's gold right there. Yeah. Because now you don't focus on that how it makes you feel inferior, it makes you feel negative, it makes you feel like a failure, right? Like, oh God, I keep getting these no's. This sucks. I don't want to do it anymore. As opposed to, like the bar, I'm going to go get 3 rejections. I'm going to go, like, I'm hell bent. I'm going to start right now.
And, just that idea of, you've mentioned like feeling inferior or feeling less than. I think that's a really powerful feeling in most of us. And it comes as a result of these social comparisons that we're making all the time. And I used to try and teach clients to stop making the social comparisons, bigger bicep, better car, better job, more money, better house, all that stuff, which you can always find. And then more recently, there's been research showing that tendency, that need to compare ourselves to others is hardwired into the brain. So it seems that we cannot stop making social comparisons. I think the best we can do is go, oh, I'm making the comparisons again, call it out, name it, and then try and get away from it. But those whole social comparisons are pretty fascinating to me.
Now, would you say, so is your focus like mine? Is your focus mostly men? I would assume.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So men, like we talked about before, men market with their success, women market with skin. And that's debatable and can be I would never put that in the public, sector, but just go online and you can see, even on LinkedIn, I don't know if you've noticed, there is more and more women shooting selfies every day. And what happened was, and I heard somebody tell me this, that when COVID hit, a lot of people were in the home more and working from home more. Well, a lot of people moved over from Instagram to LinkedIn to find remote job. They're spending more time on LinkedIn. Well, they took their Instagram approach and put it right on LinkedIn. And sure enough, I see it. I see it every day. It's not, and I'm going to make a prediction. More and more women are going to do it more often. They're going to do it more often because what happens is you get these thirsty, pathetic men that blow up that post, blow it up, hearts, emojis, just like on Instagram. These men are feeding into it, and then now it's a feel good for the lady. She's like, wow, look at this. I do a post and I get 500 likes on my LinkedIn. This is amazing. Dopamine, right? Mm-hmm. So I definitely think that when you focus on that, getting back to that rejection, I think that's a beautiful thing, because I think a lot of us fear it so badly, right? And I think with the men, I had a mentor of mine, my last personal training client in the home. He was the number three guy in Intel. So can you imagine how high up he was? He was reporting to Andy Grove, the CEO back then. Andy Grove, right? Big guy. He was my client. And I trained him for 10 years in his home here in Arizona. And he became almost a father figure to me, because I really never had a father, so to speak. And he said 2 or 3 things to me that I will take to my grave. And one was this. He goes, this is a very wealthy guy and a handsome man too, by the way, married. But, back then he was probably 55, 6'2", kind of a, like a, not George Clooney, Richard Hamilton. Richard Hamilton, is that his name?
Yeah.
They could be brothers for sure. Good looking, silver haired guy. He said to me one day, he goes, Mike, I want to tell you something. There will always be somebody richer, smarter, better looking. And he goes, God forbid for you, fitter than you. Right? And when he said that, I walked out to my car and it changed me forever. Yeah. Because there you go, right? That if we get stuck in our own world of I'm this, I'm that, whether it's on a negative standpoint or a positive standpoint, right? You have to circle back around to no. I could walk out this door right now and there's somebody fitter than me, right? And there's somebody that's richer than me and somebody that's smarter than me. So you have to keep it all in perspective and stay in your wheelhouse. What do you want out of your life? Who gives a shit what somebody else has? How much, the car they have, the home they have, the money, who cares?
Well, I think part of what we're doing is, I think as men, we're socialized to compete, which fuels those social comparisons. And I think that we get trained to look for external validation. In other words, the likes on Instagram, or, compliments from other people, or I'm doing better than that guy in some way. And I think it's only a hypothesis, I have nothing to back this up, but I think one of the hallmarks of becoming a mature, functional adult male is moving, and maybe female too, I don't know, is moving from external validation to more internal validation, where we are giving ourselves props for acting in accordance with our deepest values. And I think once we get to that, I think we can, kind of use our values to guide our behaviors as a rudder on a ship, and we have less need of the external validation.
I love that. Well, I love the idea of flipping that around to going internal, because it all starts mind. It's all internal, then it goes external, right? And so I think a lot of people focus on the external part, the car, the boat, the this, the that, for men. And you're right, because men by nature are competitive. We're hunters. Go back to, there's your caveman, right? You leave in the morning and you go out and you bring back to your wife and family the biggest animal or what. It is literally in our DNA. And I know for me, I'm a hunter, no doubt. Every day I'm a hunter. Every day I get up and I'm hunting. And, and women, by the way, find that extremely attractive, right? Because that goes back to that, when you're a man who's not ambitious, when you're a man that's not driven, you're a man that doesn't have goals, you're a man that doesn't have any aspirations, and you don't have a purpose, that's very unattractive to a woman. Very unattractive, right? And so I think a lot of men, as maybe they're 20 years into a marriage, and they've let themselves go, and they're comfortable in their job, and they're really not doing much but laying around the house, right? So they're not on purpose. They've instead of a high value man, they've become a low value man. Well, that woman is not going to desire you anymore. She's not going to respect you anymore, right? And pretty soon the marriage breaks up, right? And then you wonder what happened. And a lot of times the woman just says, he just doesn't give a shit anymore. He just doesn't care. Look at him. Look at him, right? And women are in the same boat too. A lot of women let themselves go and all that. So it's two sides to that. But I think for men, you've got to have a purpose. You got to have something to wake up for in the morning. And that purpose could be part business, could be part personal. But without a purpose, you got no why. You have no reason to do anything.
And I think
floating through life.
One of those, I agree that men need a purpose. I think humans need a purpose.
Yes.
And I think, one of the findings that really fascinates me is to have a self-transcendent purpose or value is immensely powerful in terms of fueling a happy life. So in other words, you have to think beyond self. You have to have, it might be a nonprofit that you love. It might be trying to cure cancer. It might be trying to clean the ocean. Whatever it is, to have a purpose beyond self is massive.
A purpose beyond self. Holy crap. I've never heard that phrase before. That's pretty intense.
Yeah, and you can still have, I think, keeping your body physically fit and,
Sure.
That's still appropriate. I just don't know that that's the purpose. That can be a value or a goal.
Yeah.
But your purpose might even be family, but even that is bigger than yourself. And so I think it's a nice delineation in my mind to be like, okay, is that purpose self-transcendent? Is it bigger than just me? Because to me, that's the goal we're shooting for.
Well, one question I started asking myself pretty recently, by the way, and I just turned 59 like 3 weeks ago. So again, evolving every day. So I think when I have a thought or when I have something that happens in my right brain, I think, who is that serving? Is that serving me? Is that serving? Who is it serving? I asked that question to myself. And that really was profound for me, right? Because a lot of people I call it fluffy. I'm here to serve people. I'm here to serve, right? And I don't know how authentic that is, when somebody says that, because I don't know who that person is. But I think you have to ask yourself, like when you get a thought, who is that thought? Is that serving me in a positive way? Is it serving me in a negative way? Is it serving somebody else, right? So I like the question of who is that serving? And is it serving me or them in a positive or negative way? Right? So that's another way to reframe it.
Yeah, I like that. And then, the other question to ask yourself if you want to sit and spin on the toilet for a while is who is doing the thinking? Who is having the thought? Because one of the things I'm always trying to teach my clients is to go meta and to step out of the thought stream and to look down the thought stream and ask, who's doing the thinking? Are these thoughts serving me? To what extent? Can I come up with a different interpretation for that person's behavior, that kind of thing, rather than taking it too personally?
So it's your podcast, but I'm going to ask you the question. What do you mean by when you work with them, who's doing the thinking? Explain that for a minute.
Because I think that we get too enmeshed in our own thinking and our own emotions. So when we do that, we can get lost in our thought stream. And you can begin to believe the thoughts like, I'm an idiot. I'm a loser. Whatever the negative thought is, I can look for and find evidence to support that thought of I'm an idiot because I've done stupid stuff in the past.
Yeah.
But it doesn't serve me. And so in order to get out of that dynamic, you have to practice stepping back from, and I think the first step is stopping believing that you are your thoughts, because that totally screwed me up for many years where I just thought I was my thoughts, right?
Yep.
And then I'm like, oh wait, and my emotions are in my body, so I got to pay attention to my body. And then so now I think of myself as kind of this being, I guess, that floats above my mind and can, when I'm on point, look down at what my mind is doing and comment on it, use strategies to get out of it or think more positively. And that's, I think it's a great way to go. And it also ensures that I'm in the present moment.
I almost like, I relate it to like an out-of-body experience where you're sort of, you're out here somewhere, floating out there, looking in, right? It's kind of what you just said. I mean, and so you kind of look from external, you look internal, and you really, it's almost this, it's an out-of-body experience. It really is, to where you can catch yourself.
And it's an intentionally out-of-body experience. Yes. And it's funny because in psychology, we talk about immersed self-talk and distanced self-talk. And immersed self-talk is when you're in the thought stream, when you're in the thick of it. You're like, oh my God, I can't deal with this. I can't take this shit anymore. And then you're panicked. Whereas distance self-talk is you can speak to yourself in second person or third person. John, what are you doing?
Ooh, I like that.
What's that thought about? And there's a lot of research to back this up, that it helps you to step out of that thought stream and gain some distance. It's kind of like, I remember, and I've told this story before, but like I was asking a client to describe their anxiety, and he said, it's like a tornado. And I was like, wow, that's awesome. And geez. I said, so now what I want you to do is, or I guess hurricane, because there's an eye of the hurricane, right? I always get those confused. I don't live in the Midwest or the South. And so I said, what I want you to do is imagine stepping into the eye of the hurricane where things are still swirling around you, but there's air, you can breathe, you can relax a little bit, it's safer. And then the next step is, now imagine you're the weatherman with a safe distance between you and the hurricane, and you're reporting on that. So now you're 2 miles away. And then you can continue that by, let's imagine you're the news anchor safely in the TV studio talking to the weatherman.
Oh, that's awesome.
But the problem with that approach is it requires a cognitive load. In other words, it takes energy, cognitive energy. And so far easier to just remind yourself to think about yourself in that second or third person. Like I'll talk to myself in we a lot, or John, as opposed to when I'm using I or me or my, then you're in the thick of it.
I've never, this is amazing. I've never that third person to where like, I'd be like, okay, Michael, blah, blah, blah. What's that? It's kind of funny. I have to say, I have to lighten this up for a split second. So I love going to Southern California, and I live in Arizona. Okay. So I would live in Southern, if California wasn't such a dang mess, I'd be living there in a heartbeat. I'd be living there because I love the beach, but I went there last weekend and hit, Laguna Beach, Newport Beach, and I ended up in Santa Monica. Okay. And Santa Monica, as anybody who knows Southern California, it's getting better, by the way. I was really happy to see the homeless, that some of the really tough situations over there, it's getting better. But talk about self-talk and outwardly self-talk. Literally, I mean, within about a 3-hour period, 5 people were not only talking out loud, to themselves, yelling out loud.
Yeah, the schizophrenics and
yelling.
Severely mentally ill.
You're an asshole and I was like, it's very shocking, right? It just takes you for a minute and then you just kind of keep going. But it makes me kind of chuckle at what you're saying, that because we want to do it not to where people can hear it. Right? You don't want, because
sometimes I think it's, sometimes I'll talk to myself out loud, like when I'm at home, but it's funny because the longer I've done this work, the more comfortable I am speaking to myself in different voices in my head. Like I'll talk to the little kid in me that might be frightened, for example, and be like, hey buddy, like not a big deal. Relax. I got this. You get behind me. Let me take over. Cause I don't want that little kid in charge of me. I don't want him coming out if possible. And so sometimes I got to calm him down. And, there's a lot of systems in psychology or theories that are moving in this direction, which is funny because 20 years ago, I would have been like, you mean like multiple personality?
Yeah.
and now it's like, no, you really should talk to, your 15-year-old rebel or your 5-year-old fearful little boy. Yeah,
that's pretty funny. I think in many ways, when I turned 59, I'm 1 year off 60, which it really does blow me away because I do feel probably 35, maybe 30, 35, right? Like just everything about me. I don't
your
dress
energy.
Old. Yeah, I don't act old. I don't dress old. I don't talk old. And that's a whole nother story with, I seem to attract much younger women, right? Because of how I am. And I have older women, well, my age, try to shame me and talk down about me. Like, don't you think you dress young? Don't you think you act? And I'm like, bye-bye, goodbye. Because it's toxic. It's all of that. Right. But it's funny to think that I feel more like a little kid, not 50% of the time. It's probably not 50, but it's pretty high. I would bet you, I'd say 30 to 35% of the time, I feel like a kid. I'll run around the house. I got a dog. I'll make funny noises to the dog and do goofy
well, you never
stuff.
want to lose that in my mind.
No,
I think because that's part of, joy. It's part of beginner's mind, youthful exuberance.
I was just going to say that youthful vibe, that youthful energy. I can't be around people that truly act old, or they say phrases like this. And I talk about this in my book. I used to be able to do this. I should do that.
Well, when I was talking about mindset, I mean, there's a classic study by Ellen Langer on aging and how mindset impacts our aging. And, a lot of us are like, oh, well, I guess I'm just too old for that, or I'm getting older, or now that I'm, 60 and what she found is if you convince yourself, or if you choose to have the mindset of acting as if you were 15 years younger, let's say, there's a host of health benefits that come along with it. Higher IQ, better memory, better grip strength, more flexibility. But the one that blew me away is better vision.
Oof.
I don't know of any psychological intervention that will improve your vision.
Yeah, I mean,
I was so, it's a great book called Counterclockwise.
Counterclockwise.
And it's incredible. But these mindsets are quite powerful. I think we're just scratching the surface.
How do you feel about Dr. Joe Dispenza?
I think he's done some great work. I wouldn't say I'm an expert in what he's done, but I've read part of a couple of books. And, I think I first got turned on to him, I must have been 20 years ago. There was kind of a documentary out called What the Bleep Do We Know, which is amazing. And he was in that.
Oh, was he? Okay, because I came across him probably just 3 or 4 years ago on YouTube. And just, the way he talks, I can't listen to him for too long because, your thoughts become everything else,
reality.
Right? So,
yeah.
And he really talks about the documentation of your thoughts and your health, how people can think. And I do struggle with that a lot. I have a tendency to have a little bit of a hypochondriac mindset since a little boy.
Yeah.
And so I do that. And it doesn't, and you want to talk about, does it serve me well?
Well, and I do believe that belief becomes biology. And I think a lot of us are, with our thoughts, our beliefs, our mindsets, make ourselves sick. I mean, I think that, and I can't say it's a one-to-one correlation, but I think stress leads to stress let's see, how do I put this? Stress activates the sympathetic nervous system, or vice versa. And when that happens, you've got cortisol and norepinephrine dumped into the system. If that's chronic and doesn't really get turned off, it can lead to inflammation in a number of systems in our body. And, I can see where that could lead to depression. It can lead to cancer. And again, I don't think it's a one-to-one ratio.
Sure.
It's not a direct causal relationship, but it's a factor in there.
Oh yeah. I mean, it really does go back to, and it's kind of what you do. The mind is so powerful. It's such an amazing organism, right? And I just think, for me, my goal is always going to be till I'm gone. What can I learn from every scenario? How can I be conscious as much as I can to, and because I'm very impulsive, I'm very aggressive. That's just who I am. And so I do struggle with that, where I go at it, right? And it's not served me well sometimes. And so I'm trying at the age of 59 to slow down, I move 100 miles an hour, slow down and just don't make the same mistakes over and over. Damn it. Jeez.
Yeah.
When you do something and the result didn't turn out very well, definition of insanity is what? Doing the same thing over and over and come on.
Expecting a different result. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a big one for me, is I think people need if to end this whole thing, if people are just become more conscious of their thoughts and become more aware of their thoughts and is it serving me? Is it serving me, positive or negatively? And you've said a lot of amazing things in this podcast, and I'm right with you on everything. So, and you are going to be on my podcast, by the way, because I want my listeners to hear you, because I think you bring a wealth of knowledge to this sector. These men, these stressed out men, these unhealthy men, right? I think you can go deeper than me. I mean,
you mentioned self-awareness earlier, and Tasha Eurich has some research that shows that if you ask 100 people, 95 of them will tell you that they are highly self-aware. And in fact, it's about 15.
Yeah, no way.
And so I think that's one of the problems we face is that we are convinced that we know our mind, we know our thoughts, we know what we're feeling, we know our values. And the vast majority of us have little idea. I wouldn't say no idea, but and that's kind of the first step is increasing self-awareness.
Have you heard of the research? I Googled this the other day, just my ADD kicked in. And I'm like, how many thoughts does a human brain have in a day? And I'm sure you probably know them.
I have not found any research to back that up.
There
but
you go.
I've had the same thought. And so what I did is I just assumed a thought a second, which you can argue, one way or another slightly, but I think it's pretty reasonable, which means that we have about 50,000 thoughts per day, given our waking hours.
See, I agree with that. When I Googled it, and I don't know where it came from, it said 6,000. And typical me, I pull up my phone and start doing the math.
Yeah.
I was like, no,
I
that's
mean,
way
maybe
low.
if you're a monk and you can kind of shut down thinking, it just
I
doesn't
was
seem
thinking,
high
no
enough.
way.
Yeah.
I mean, my
and
brain.
I think, some people have faster thoughts than others. Some people, we have layers of thoughts. I think intelligence speeds up our thoughts. ADD speeds up our thoughts. And yeah, I like, because I did this a while back. In fact, I got it on my wall here. So on average, we have 50,000 thoughts per day, if you agree with that assumption. Because of the negativity bias, about 80% of our thoughts are negative. And you can say that, it's 60%, but it's definitely more than 50.
Oh, for sure.
And so that means we have about 40,000 negative thoughts each and every day of our life. Times 365 days of the year is 14.6 million negative thoughts that you tell yourself every year of your life. And when I was doing this, I was trying to prove that thoughts are important. And when I finished it, I was like, oh shit, that's not the question. The question is, at what point do you begin to believe all these lies? Like, I'm an idiot. I'm a loser. I'm too fat. Nobody likes me. I'm not worthy. All that stuff, whatever your kind of Hall of Fame negative thoughts are, if you hear them a million times, you're probably pretty likely to believe them.
You know what's interesting? And we should probably talk about this off the podcast, but
okay.
Well, I feel like there's not a lot of like organizations for men.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of get-togethers or whatever for men, right? And so I was going to do one here in Phoenix and spearhead the whole thing. And I'm not a real event guy. I don't want to set it up or any of that stuff. I'm the guy that just get me at the front of everybody and just start going. But I feel like there's something that should be out there, with people like you and I, like professionals that specialize in certain things. And maybe there's 6 of us, and maybe you could make me more the physical guy or whatever. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But you get like 5 or 6, professionals that have these events or have these weekend outings. And I mean, I've heard of a couple before.
Yeah.
A couple of them are a little bit funky to me. They're a little too rah. I'm not into that rah.
It's funny that you mentioned this, because I was just thinking about this about, 3 or 4 weeks ago. And I started thinking that, I've been trained to kind of see clients one-on-one.
Same here.
And that was kind of the rule in my mind. And then I started thinking, well, we know there's an epidemic of loneliness among men. We know that adult men often lose friendships for a variety of reasons. They move, divorce, whatever. And so I thought, maybe let's look at, if the rules aren't working, let's change the rules. And so I started talking to each of my adult male clients. And I said, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think? And what I was thinking of was just getting everyone together for a dinner, simply for the purposes of connection. No other
right?
agenda.
Exactly.
And every client to a man was like, absolutely, I'm in.
Yes. That's what happened here in Phoenix.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. Well, because I think men are yearning to be, I don't think they want to do the cry on each other's shoulder thing. I don't think that's it. I think it's more,
connection.
Connection. It's huge, enormous.
And COVID gave us all a slap in the face socially. And so we just had our first kind of get together last week. And
you did?
Fantastic. There was 10 of us there.
Awesome.
And I asked 12, and everyone said yes. Some couldn't make it, but it was just really, really enjoyable.
Oh, that's amazing. See, that's exactly what I was thinking about.
And there was laughter, there was smiles, there was connection. Yep. I mean, and connection on levels that I didn't even see coming. And
really?
It was really cool. Yeah. It was fantastic.
See, you're onto something, because that's what I was thinking here in Arizona was there, and for me, it would have been more the high driving guys, because that's who I relate to. Right. So, and not to like alienate anybody else out of the group and you don't belong or anything like that. But just really the kind of people that I work with are growth-driven men. Very, very, most of them are powerful men of some sort, but they're just broken in so many facets of their life. And if they got together and just had a casual little, there's no premise to it. There's no real end goal to it other than just, let's get together and meet. If you guys talk about whatever you talk about, go for it. And that, I don't know exactly how yours went, but I feel like that could be a move in the right direction to get men to feel more connected.
Well, we just went to a great Italian restaurant and had some wine and had some great Italian food and just talked.
See, there you go. There you go. See? I mean, now, did they want to do it again?
We're going to do it once a month.
There you go. There you go. See? I love it.
And everyone was quite grateful. And I was just like, maybe we're onto something here.
That's what I was thinking a couple of months ago was there's got to be something where men can drop their guard.
Yeah.
And I think it's got to be somewhat private's not the right word, but it's got to be something where they feel
safe and secure.
They got to feel safe.
Where they're not going to be humiliated or mocked, I think is.
Or exposed or like somebody's going to go off and,
there's no ambush coming.
Yeah. Because I think but if they feel, if they're in an environment that's safe, that's trusting, I think that's so powerful. I think so it's cool you did that. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thanks.
That's awesome.
All right. So I got to wrap up.
Yep.
So let me ask you, is there anything I didn't ask you that I should have, or anything you would like to mention? Oh, and also, would you share the website of where people can pick up the book?
Yeah, no, this talk went way better than I thought, just because I've never, there it is.
Wait,
there it is. There it is.
I've got a filter on.
It keeps getting blurred out.
Dominate Your Market.
Well, it's a bright yellow book. It's the yellow book. But no, this was an amazing conversation, because we've never met. So just to hear your depth of knowledge, yours is a lot more educational than mine. Mine's kind of in the trenches, just raw. Just as I stumbled along my life, I've been like, oh shit. Well, yours is a little bit more educationally based. But no, I think we covered a lot. But I definitely want to have you on my podcast for sure. No doubt.
Absolutely.
But with the book, you know what? I changed the website about 3 weeks ago to giving away chapter 1 for free.
Okay.
And chapter 1.
And where can they get that?
It's dominateyourbook.com, dominateyourmarketbook.com. I always forget that. So it's www.dominateyourmarketbook.com. So
Excellent.
It's the word book on the end of the title of the book.
All right. So thank you very much for joining me on this. I really appreciate it. And for you listeners, thank you very much for your time and attention. I really appreciate that as well. And if you like this episode, please rate, review, and share. And if you didn't like it, you don't have to do a damn thing. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Evolved Caveman Podcast. If you like what you've heard, support us by subscribing, leaving reviews, and sharing the podcast with friends and colleagues. For the latest, most powerful tools to connect with like-minded men, join the Facebook group at The Evolved Caveman. Follow Dr. John on Instagram at The Evolved Caveman, all one word, or join the email list by visiting guidetoself.com.